So far, we looked at the Trinity, that God is one being in all his divine attributes, and yet this one God existed in three persons for all eternity. And so today we're going to be looking particularly at the person of Christ. And we're going to be asking, who is Jesus? This is a question that not only is the church asking, but it's a question that non-Christians seem to be very interested in as well. And non-Christians have a lot of answers for this too. You know, it wasn't too long ago to reject that Jesus even existed. The world was saying, you know, when you look into the life of Jesus, there's no proof that he even existed. There's no tomb or bones that have been recovered. Of course, we Christians have a different reason for that. It's because he resurrected. But non-Christians, they've been attacking Christianity by saying, you know, Jesus, he never really existed. We have no historical evidence. And although that was really popular, that movement really lost a lot of steam. And here's a book by Bart Ehrman. And Bart Ehrman, by the way, is no Christian. He's a fierce opponent of Christian, and yet he's a student of history and of the Bible. And he wrote this famous book called Did Jesus Exist? The Historical Argument for Jesus of Nazareth. And here's a non-Christian who wrote a book defending the historicity that Jesus was a real man who walked on this planet. And the reason he wrote this book is not to give credit to Christianity, because, you know, he's attacked it quite a bit. But the reason is because he's trying to persuade his fellow atheists, his fellow non-Christians, by saying, hey, look, I'm a historian here, and I don't like Christianity just like you, but when you go ahead and try to attack even the existence of Jesus Christ, you're really shooting our movement in the foot. So please stop saying ridiculous things like that, because it's really not helping our case, because it's pretty well established amongst scholars that Jesus is a first century Jew who really did exist. And so please, even though culture is saying that he didn't, don't attack Christianity in this way. It's irresponsible. Attack Christianity in other places. Please don't attack the historicity of Jesus Christ. And so here, if we have a non-Christian saying this, then, you know, I think we can pretty much rest our case, because culture has kind of moved on a little bit. And what's starting to get really popular these days is people are no longer attacking the existence of Jesus or the humanity of Jesus, but now people are starting to attack the divinity of Jesus. They're starting to say, oh yeah, Jesus was a real person who existed, but he never claimed to be God. The New Testament writers, they missed who Jesus really was. And one of the famous advocates of this view is a man called Reza Aslan. I think he teaches at UC Riverside, but he wrote this book called Zealots, The Life and Times of Jesus of Nazareth. And it's just one of the many popular books out there that are saying, you know, Jesus was a human, and yet Jesus was not what the New Testament authors claimed. Jesus never claimed to be God. Jesus was, well, Reza Aslan particularly says Jesus was a zealot. He was a failed revolutionary, and he was executed. And he never claimed to be God, but his followers, they were embarrassed, and they made up myths about who Jesus was, things that Jesus never claimed to be. And then later, in maybe, I don't know, like hundreds of years later, in Constantinople, Constantine, he gave to us today what Christianity is as a power trip. And Constantine's version of Christianity is not what Jesus claimed or was historically what existed, and blah, blah, blah. And so they really attack the person of Jesus by attacking his divinity. And I just want to say, you know, when you look at the historical development of Christianity, these arguments really get ridiculous, especially arguments like Reza Aslan. And the reason is because historically speaking, the earliest controversies about who Jesus was not regarding his divinity. It was regarding his full humanity. When you look at 1 John, and, you know, if you're a non-Christian, you're not going to look at 1 John as a theology book, but you're going to look at it as a historical text. And 1 John was probably written around 80, 90. This means, you know, Jesus having died around 80, 33. You know, some time has passed, and the first generation Christians who lived and walked on this planet with Jesus, they've probably died along with the apostles. John is the last of the living apostles left, and there are, you know, and amongst the second generation Christians, people are starting to say things about Jesus that they couldn't get away with earlier, when people who lived with Jesus, you know, could vouch for them. One of the earliest controversies that came about was in 80, 90, when people started to deny that Jesus was human. It's not that they denied Jesus was God. They denied Jesus was human. They said, oh, if Jesus is God, how could God ever come in the flesh? Jesus was God, and obviously God can't be human. And so Jesus, he appeared human, but he was not really human. He didn't have flesh. No, he just he didn't eat. He didn't poop. How could you imagine God pooping? And so they really tried to deny Jesus' humanity. And so you see in 1 John 1:1 and 4:2, John really laying his foot down to the second generation Christians that, hey, Jesus was definitely a human being. Okay, and so we see that going on. It's only in AD 325 when Jesus' full divinity has to be reestablished. Now they were starting to say, okay, maybe Jesus was like this demigod, kind of like Hercules. And they're like, no, that's ridiculous. Let's go back to our roots. And so Nicaea, you see them establishing Jesus' full divinity. And then Constantinople in AD 381, Jesus' full humanity is established. And then we see further developments in Christology. And so, point is, I just wanted to throw this out here to really show you the absurdity of the claims of Reza Aslan or whatever else, whatever culture is saying that about how Jesus, excuse me, I just wanted to really show you the absurdity of the cultural claims about what Christianity actually was like in the first century. Because when you look at Christianity as we have it right now, it's remarkably similar. It's identical. It's the same faith, the same gospel, the same understanding of Jesus that has been perpetuated throughout the centuries. And here's a wonderful book that I just want to recommend by Kostenberger. This was just a nuclear bomb that secularists want to hide because it's a pretty well-written book. It's called The Heresy of Orthodoxy. It's just a pretty strong, pretty critical historical analysis on all these weird beliefs about Jesus and early Christianity. And it's really making the case that, hey, Orthodoxy, the Christian faith, the understanding of Jesus as we have it today is exactly what the first century Christians believed. And so here's a book I wanted to recommend. And then with that, we're going to be looking into the person of Jesus.